Hello, beautiful people out there, and welcome to a new edition of Era Stories. And today we have a very special guest, as we always do. This happens to be a very personal one for me because this is a very dear friend, someone who I love tremendously, and has had what an extraordinary journey he's had. And I'm going to get him online right this second. Um, I really want to tell you the name, but I just want to just say the Phillip Bloch, one of the greatest creative minds that I know, stylist, designer, everything you about. Oh my goodness, look at that beautiful face. Look at that man. Oh, Phillip, welcome. Why is it that I cannot hear you? Yes, I see you, but I cannot hear you. So is your mic on?
Volume on?
Now you're on.
Now I'm on.
Now I can hear you, Philip, you beautiful
Ta-da!
man.
We're
How
here.
are you? Thank you
I'm
so much.
excellent.
Thank you from the middle of my heart for joining us.
Where are you, like
And
Morocco, or what's going on back there? I don't recognize that back
well,
wall.
this is a NADIA creation, so this is at my. Well, yeah, you never came to my home, so
I've been no,
next time you're in
I've
Los
been up to the
Angeles,
treehouse.
yeah, this is my home, and it's a beautiful wall that I've kept for many years, and it gives me that Moroccan sort of feeling,
It's
which
very
I'm a big
ethnic.
lover of Morocco. Guys, I'm so excited for this segment because this is someone that I've admired, is a dear friend, someone I loyal to death. That's a word that he and I use. I don't love him, I loyal him. And Philip, thank you so much. And please, uh, first things first, where are you from, Philip? I've never known where you're from.
It's a secret. If I tell you, I'm gonna have to kill you. I was born in Jamaica, Queens. You know that hospital you pass on the way to Kennedy Airport when you're leaving the city. I was
Sure.
born in Jamaica Hospital, 7:27 in the evening. Saturday's my birthday, so and I lived in Long Island. I grew up in Long Island most of the time. Yeah, Seaford, Long
Oh,
Island, Jones Beach. I'm a Long Island kid, Strong Island. I still go there. I have all my friends from high school and junior high. I was just spent a week out there last week. I'm going out in a couple of weeks, and I think my mom was from New England. My dad grew up in Queens, Forest Hills, Union Turnpike, and my family is Spanish and French and Russian. I'm a mutt.
oh my. Now, how does a Long Island, a Queens, New York kid ends up in the most glamorous places in the world, New York, Paris? How did this journey begin for you, Philip?
I think I was always interested in, well, I always thought I was adopted. I thought Sophia Loren was my mother, and my parents were just these people that ended up taking me from the hospital. I was never quite sure how that worked out because I always, like, even as a kid, it's the weirdest thing. And I was just talking about this with my friends from childhood. I literally, I still have all those friends. And I always knew it was temporary there and I was going somewhere else. Like Europe always spoke to me, like fashion and Hollywood and royalty. And like when Prince Charles became the Prince of Wales, I remember thinking, wow, his mom could make him the prince of all the whales in the world. What is my mother doing for me? Nothing. And I was like, what, probably like 2 years old then. I always like had this affinity and this calling. And so I was a pretty wild kid in school. I definitely was disobedient. I had some drug and drinking issues. I started pretty early. I was smoking cigarettes and selling weed at 12. And my parents bought me a wine sack when I was like 13. They went to somewhere in the Caribbean and brought me back a wine sack. My parents were very cool. They weren't cool, but they were cool. They weren't like hippies or anything, but like
Right.
drinking was, they didn't know I was like smoking weed, but and they didn't know I was smoking cigarettes, but I would just blame that on everybody else. The smell, they'd be like, what's that smell? I'm like, oh, those other kids. And luckily I had as you know, I'm pretty all over the place. I have a little bit of an attention deficit sometimes, but that can be a positive. And I had an art teacher, Mrs. DeQuilfeld, that really made sure that I passed my school and got into FIT, Fashion Institute, I had good friends, my friends that I'm still very close with. They were in my art class. We were all in art together. They were my homegirls. I used to sell them weed at lunch break, and they're my besties. And you like, dollar joints outside the cafeteria at lunchtime. But luckily, I had a teacher that cared. I was getting kicked out of school for I don't know what time it was. I'd been kicked out multiple times, and my parents were coming into school, and they're walking down the hall, and the teacher sees my parents, and she says, "Are you by any chance Phillip Bloch's parents?" And my father said, "Why? What did he do?" And, and she said, "Oh, he's lovely. He's just such a lovely student. He has so much talent, and he's so sweet and very kind, and he's so quiet and gentle." And my father was like, "I don't think you're talking about the same kid. That's not Phillip." And she's like, "No, no, I see another side of him, and art is a different side." Long story short, she saw that, and she went with my parents to the principal's office, and they created an art program for me so they took me out of some classes that I wasn't doing good and created an art program for me in design, fashion design. This is in high school in 78, 76, 77, 78. Like, they didn't do that in those days, but this teacher saw something. And it's fascinating because my other best friend that I just was staying with over last week, opposite experience with that teacher. She was beautiful and blonde and looked like Farrah Fawcett, and that teacher treated her so bad because she felt Kitty got everything too easy, and she knew things were a struggle for me, and she knew it was harder for me, and I had stuff to overcome. And Kitty was beautiful and blonde, and she was like, so whenever we talk about Mr. Quilfell, which we do still, I'm like, "Oh, she saved my life," and she's like, "I hate that bitch." But a teacher can save your life. It's very important. Teachers are so important, and I really am so grateful for her. And then I went to FIT. I got into FIT in the city, and I knew I wanted to model. Like, that was something, I don't know, I just had in my head I wanted to go be a model. For my final project, I did Revlon ads, and I used a picture of Julie Foster, from Vogue magazine. I took, I was just a fan. But I went to FIT, and I majored in Studio 54 and Xenon, as one does. As one does when you're 18 and you move to the city, and the world is there. I got introduced to everybody from Margot Hemingway. I'm going to say some names. You're going to go Ara Gallant, Francesca Scavulo, and Sean, Truman Capote. I mean, like, I danced with the best of them, Halston and Pat Cleveland and Carol Alt and Patty Hansen. Sean Casey, may she rest in peace. And Patty Hansen used to come in all the time together. And Margot Hemingway, I must have twirled with her. And Brooke Shields, oh my God, Brooke was a baby. She used to come into Xenon, and we would talk all the time. Her mother would talk to the owners of the club, and Brooke and I would sit and chat all night. Yeah, I mean, I was bit, and I loved it, and I knew it was what my destiny was. And to this day, of all the things I've done on this planet, and I'm sure by the time this hour's over, people are going to know a lot of them. That's probably some of my fondest memories come from the modeling business.
You got your PhD at Studio 54.
Yes,
I know.
I'm a pro, baby. I'm no quitter.
So here we are. You're at Studio 54. How do you end up becoming a model?
A lot of pounding the pavement. I woke up a lot of mornings and had a glass of rejection and a bowl of hell no. And I just, I was cute. I was young. I was half naked. I was covered in liquor and sweat, and people liked it. And I just kind of, you make connections, and like everybody does now, you make connections. And at the end of the day, I ended up. I was always too ethnic. I was too ethnic or exotic were the words that we used then, because I wasn't blonde haired, blue eyes. I was really like 5'10" and a half, 5'10" and 3/4 if I stood really tall. And that was short. I was, you had to be a 42 reg, I think, back in those days. I was more like a 36, 38. I looked very, very, very young. When I was in my 20s, when I ended up working, I ended up doing all jeans campaigns at the beginning and teen magazine covers, because I looked 16, 15. When I finally got to London, I was doing teen magazine covers with Nick Kamen and Adamant and Billy Idol. And it's all about dare you get close to our cover boy. He's hunky model Phillip from New York, and he rides a bicycle, and it's like it was all kid stuff. In jeans, I got my first really big break. Besides oh my gosh, like, oh my God, I had so many lucky things in my career. But my first big break was a DoorDash campaign, and I got $5,000 a day in like
Oh my
early
goodness,
80s.
5,000 in those days?
A guy getting 5,000. Oh, it ended up being over 5,000 because you got special royalties for the billboards and blah, 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 blah usage. But $5,000 for a guy in like 81 probably was really a lot, 82.
That was a lot of money.
And that funded my career. I went to Europe, and I went to London, and I started working, and I still have so many friends from those days. It's so interesting. Like, I'm just a friend collector, as you know. We've been friends for years, and I'm a friend collector. So I have all my friends from my high school. Then I have some of my friends still from the studio days, and now I started modeling, and I have my friends from the modeling days. So
What agency represented you in Paris and in London?
So first I went with a small agency called Askew's in London. That's when I did all the covers, and I first met like Nick Kamen and all that. Then I went back afterwards. My career got bigger when I kind of got more international, because I really just started, and I had the DoorDash hadn't even come out yet, and I just went to London. And so I just started working there more like almost like a local, for lack of a better word. I hadn't been to Milan and Paris yet. And then I went to Barcelona after that, and then gosh, it was like I was with Zed when I came back, which Ziggy was so cool, and that was the coolest agency. That was probably around 84, 85, and Ben Shaw, he and I were just talking today, because we did Galliano's first show together, and Gautier's early shows with Marie-Sophie and Leslie Weiner.
Weiner.
Oh my God, remember Leslie Weiner? She was so cool. Like, the great thing about like those days is like people were cool. Like Leslie Weiner was cool. Like she was a HBIC before. Like there was Madonna and there was Leslie Weiner. Like those were the two cool people on the planet. Like there weren't. Now there's a million cool people, right? You know what I mean?
That girl was so cool.
Oh my God! Like she was just cool.
She was Ziggy putting together that agency of like most of her models were ethnic.
It was a freak show there. I was saying, like, then in that time it was freak show. You had Mimi had that blonde curly hair, like long blonde curly, but she was albino, and Ben and myself and just so many people. Like Moose. We were
Moose. Ben and I were normal. By Ziggy. You know Moose.
Yeah, Moose was in there.
Started with Ziggy.
I mean, when did anybody like Moose ever work before Zed? You know what I mean? Like,
right? I mean, it didn't exist, those days.
Well,
and then you started doing the shows between London and Paris. And what about Milan? Did you ever experience the Milan?
Yeah. So then, so I did London. Then I went to Barcelona, and then I ended up going to Tokyo, and I saw Jean-Paul Gaultier on the streets in Tokyo. I ran into him, and I was wearing one of his jackets. And he says, "Oh, you're wearing my jacket." And I said, "Well, it's my jacket now." And he said, "Oh, what are you doing here? Are you a model?" And he's like, so me. He's like, "You should come to Paris and do my show." And I knew who he was. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I would love to." I said, "But I'm going to go to Bali and do mushrooms. And then I'm going to go to Australia, but maybe next season." And, what can you say?
Phillip,
I was a kid with a dream, but I had a plan, I was like, I had a vision. And so, needless to say, I didn't go to Bali and do mushrooms, nor go to Australia. I went to Paris and I went to the agents. I said, "Yeah, I met Jean-Paul Gaultier today." And he said I should come to Paris and do the show. And they're like, "Well, that's great. You should go do it." I said, "Well, I'm going to go do mushrooms." They were like, "No, you should go to Paris." So anyway, I went to Paris, and I was with First. I was with Paul Agnauer. Yes, Paul. And Princess Stephanie was with the agency at the same time as me. That was very fun. My father came to visit one time and totally embarrassed me by telling Princess Stephanie that I was the biggest model in the agency. Yeah. My father sat and talked to Princess Stephanie for about a half hour and explaining how big I was because I was in this. Huh?
Rightfully so.
There you go. I had a billboard, and so he was, he thought, you were there, and he like, you know, have you seen my son's billboard in the, in the Champs-Elysees? You know, like, of course you've seen it. She was like sleeping with all the guys. She didn't care. And then I went to Milan, and Calvin French was my booker. Calvin was my first booker in Milan. Actually, I was with Beatrice the very first time I went. Beatrice. I was with Beatrice from Spain because I was with agency group in Milan and Barcelona, and Natasha put me with Beatrice. But then when I ended up going to Paris, I didn't really work that first trip in Milan. I only went for like a week or two just to kind of get the agency. But then when I kind of went back and I was with first, Calvin saw me at first, and I had done, by this point I was doing Gautier show and Castelbajac and Saint Laurent. So Calvin brought me right down to Milan, and I was working for Italian Vogue right off the train. And then I got off the train, and Sasha Gambaccini and Franca Sazzani were doing a shoot for Pere Louis. So they sent me to Italian Vogue, which I was already booked to work for them, but they sent me there for them to see me because I was supposed to work the next day. And they were like, oh, we're shooting right now for Pere Louis. Can you put this outfit on? And I was like, Pere Louis? Like, oh my God. Like, people don't know that was the best magazine ever, that and Lay.
Pere Louis and Pere Lay.
Yeah, Lay was the best magazine of all time, and then Pere Louis, I think, probably second. Italian Vogue obviously is right up there, but it was just so edgy, and just, it was so different for the time. We never saw images like that, and photography done like that. And I think Gilles was another magazine. Remember Mark Ascoli and Gilles?
Of course.
That was magnificent. I didn't get to work for Gilles, but Pere Louis and Lay, so I did that. Was my first thing with Franca Sozzani, who is the ultimate editrice.
The greatest editor of all time. I mean, obviously Miss Breland, and then to me, Franca. That's how I look at them.
I put Franca first. I mean, like, I was one of her boys, you know? I mean, like, she launched a million careers. I mean, she launched a lot of our careers. A lot. Well,
not only models, but also design. I mean, from designers to photographers. That, you know, one of the things I've always said about Franca Sozzani was one of the first humans I ever saw who spoke to the world via the pages of Italian Vogue, because she pretty much spoke of current events via those editorials that got shot by some of the greatest masters of photography ever.
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, I think she was so good at like compartmentalizing the talent, like the photographers that worked for Pere Louis and Lay, you know, just Francois Duconic and Jean-Francois Lepage and Tony Meneguzzo and Javier Weinrat. Oh, Javier Weinrat. Oh my God.
Wow, what a talent.
He was my favorite. I did some great work with him. We did a Wrangler campaign that was really magnificent for Spain. That was really, they were life-size pictures in the phone booths in all throughout Europe for Wrangler, and Javier shot that. But Javier shot beautiful pictures, but this was for Wrangler, and it was commercial, but it was just, it was a great campaign. Like little life-size pictures of you in the phone booth. Like one is like a student, one is a Superman, one is a rocker with a leather jacket and jeans. Like each one had a theme, and so you'd be on all sides of the phone cabin. It was crazy. Javier was amazing. All those photographers, Jean-Francois Lepage, Francois Duconic, I mean, just incredible. Calliope. I mean, so many different
Calliope, oh my God, you just took me back with that name.
Right?
Oh my goodness. Now, question, how did the transition happen from model extraordinaire to stylist?
Oh, well, it's an ongoing process. I'm back to modeling again.
I mean, like, how did that whole thing happen?
Once a model, always a model. So Sasha Gambaccini and Monica and Franca. You know, I was always that model that kind of, and again, a lot of the shoots we did, the photographers were cool like that. Like they would have me keep my jacket on because I had like a leather jacket before anybody was wearing those like 50s leather jackets, the motorcycle jackets and the Doc Marten boots and the torn jeans. Like people didn't dress like that. I had worked for Comme des Garçons a lot, and so I had a whole wardrobe from Comme des Garçons. Like people weren't walking around Italy and Paris all in black in 1980. That was for funerals. So I had this, right? The funerale. Yeah. I had this cool sense of style, and I would mix navy and black and chocolate brown and navy and chocolate brown and black and like people didn't do that in those days. It was so like, so long story short, Sasha. And then when I was like feeling like, you know, I kind of had enough, you know, again, I had a lot of issues with drugs and drinking through the career. You know, I was really good friends with Gia and in my early parts of the career. So that led me down a druggy road and Leslie Weiner, another druggy road. I definitely had my share of fun, we'll say.
Yeah.
And in those days. And
We all did.
I was burnt out. I was burnt out. I just felt like my hair was getting thin. You lose it. There's something, it's not in your eyes anymore.
Yeah.
It's not in your eyes anymore. And we talk about, we were talking about this at lunch. You get the job because you're beautiful. And when you're young, you have this, everything's just different. You can be handsome at 50 and 60 and 70 and 40 and 30, whatever. But in your 20s, it's just all something very magical and very different. And there's nothing like the innocence and the beauty of youth. It just, when you have it, it's just, when it walks in the room, it's just magic, and you can't buy it. You can't inject it. You can't swallow it, but it is. And then you lose that, and you know, it's interesting because I've seen it with Cindy too. I've seen it with Cindy through the years, because you recognize it when you've had it, where you just, it's not in the eyes anymore. Everything's a little flat. Like there's some periods where you just don't have it in you. And so anyway, I got to the end and I felt like I didn't have it, and I didn't know what the hell to do. I was like, what am I going to do? I'm not that smart. I'm not that talented. I'm not that anything. Like, what am I going to do? And Sasha was like, well, you have really good style. You should be an editor, a stylist. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, what's that? And she's like, well, the job I do, like bringing you the clothes. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, that's a job. Yeah, okay. You know, like, I mean, it just, because the industry was so different then. It was like, okay, yeah, I could do that. And really, I started to work with Romeo Gigli in their showroom at Zama Sport with Costume Nacional and Ennio. I shot the first invitation for Costume Nacional's first presentation. I shot the photographer, yeah. I mean, I was just helping out, you know, because again, I had worked in the fashion industry. I'd been around, like I was you know me, I'm just like, I'm like, oh, what do you need me to do? Your boy Mario. When I started in London, I would go assist Mario on shoots. Like if he was shooting girls, I'd go carry the camera case. He'd take a couple pictures for me. Like, you know, I'd like to hang out. So I've always been someone to call, like, let's do it. Okay, it's on, let's go.
Let's go.
So that's how I started. So when I got back to New York, I left Europe and I got back to New York. I never did drugs or drank again after that, pretty much. Like I just quit kind of cold turkey, no programs, no nothing. Then 1990, been, wow, 30-something years, 34 years since I've had a drink or drugs or anything like that. Well, I smoke my weed, don't get it twisted now. But I'm gonna smoke again when we're done. But yeah, you know, I just dropped it like that. That's another weird thing. Like it was a gift. Like it was for that time. It was what it was. It was that part of my career and my life, and I needed all that, and it made me who I was and part of my legacy. I'm very proud of it almost, that I have the ability to walk away from it.
So the styling started in Paris. It didn't start in New York.
It started in Paris. I styled a few shoots and stuff. You know, I did a little. I was like phasing out of modeling, going into styling. And then I got to New York. I worked at Vibe magazine. I ended up getting it. I was shooting Hamptons covers with a photographer, Eddie Selnick. We shot Rachel Hunter and Liv Tyler. Liv Tyler was like 13. We were smoking with her. And all of a sudden she goes, oh, my mother's going to be here. I better put my cigarette. The buzzer rang. She said, oh, it's my mom. I got to put my cigarette out. And we're like, what do you mean? She's like, well, I'm only 13. Or she was like 13 or 14. She's like, well, I'm only 13. And we were like, huh?
Now that's what,
you know, Eddie was that.
You mentioned Vibe magazine.
I'm sorry?
Because that first issue of Vibe magazine, I shot I guess it was an interview with photographer Mark Baptiste. That's how I met Mark Baptiste.
Oh my God, our brother.
Yeah, he shot me for Vibe magazine. I remember walking into that set and I'm like, Jesus, who is this guy? Because he was, you know, Mark has that energy and he's so loud.
And he's black. And you didn't have black photographers with that power at that time or with that clout. Yeah. Mark was one of the few African-American or black photographers to have that prestige. He shot everybody.
Everyone. And
really shot everybody.
He's one of my dearest friends. I call him Bernino. That's our little joke nickname for each other, and one of my dearest, closest friends, and I love him to death. Now, question. So you go back to New York, you start this styling journey of yours. How did that whole thing transition into Hollywood? Because that's when you really like arrived.
Yeah, I really we were doing this the first issue of Vibe, and Naomi, we were shooting Naomi, and I had a really hard time getting clothes for Black people. I called Calvin, I called Ralph, I called Tommy Hilfiger. All of them said no. Oh, Black people don't buy clothes. Oh, it's an R&B hip hop magazine. Those people don't wear fashion. They're not our market. They don't have money. I'm like, huh? Like I didn't even understand what they were talking about. And again, I'd always been a part of the culture. My modeling buddies we were all ethnic. It was all the ethnic kids. We all hung together. We were just all putting up. If you were like dark Italian to Black, you were all in one group. You were ethnic. That was it. So we all hung together,
Especially in New York.
Yes, well, and Europe too. London, yeah. Nick and Barry and I and Ben. Well, Ben would come with us too, and we'd be on castings together. But so when I working with Naomi, she didn't come 3 times to the shoot, and I was like, okay, like I don't need to take this shit from her. Like I'm a model, I show up. I'm like, I know, like no matter what, if we stayed out and partied all night, you'd be in Tokyo drinking all night. They'd be giving you free liquor, or you'd be in the Le Bain Douche, Le Bain all night. And then, but you showed up for work. I'd be with Katusha, and we'd be getting into whatever we'd be getting into. But we got to work. We showed up at the show, and you took a nap on the floor, if you had to, especially during show week. You'd be laying on floors. You'd be sleeping anywhere on your rack. Where's my rack? I'll just be sleeping under my clothes. Just wake me up when I got to put them on. Literally. God bless. Oh, my God, I love those days. We were rock stars. It was just really like somewhere between being a rock star roadie and being a supermodel. Yeah, somewhere in the middle of it. And so anyway, after Naomi and her craziness, I was like, if I'm going to take this kind of shit, like I'm a professional, I'll show up no matter what. Like I don't need this kind of drama. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it for Whitney Houston. I'm going to do it for Oprah, for Vanessa Williams, and Vogue and Toni Braxton. Like I'm going to do it for women that change the world and change the way people see the world. Like, Whitney sings a note and babies are born. Whitney does a song and people get married, like Naomi, I could do what Naomi do and I show up, my friends Karen Alexander, Carrie Young, Katusha, they can do what Naomi does and they don't make all that commotion. So, and I love Naomi, don't get me, we love her. We all love Naomi.
We love her.
We all got our stories. We all got our stories in our history and we love her for them because she really is, she is the queen. She is the queen. But the queen got me packing my bags and heading out west. And when I got there, there was no real connection between Hollywood, Paris, London, Milan, and Hollywood. There was no connection fashion-wise. And I knew all the designers. Like I knew Donatella and Johnny. I mean, God bless Johnny, may he rest in peace. And Giorgio, or like the people from Saint Laurent. I knew John Galliano. I knew Jean Paul. I had the connections, and then being in New York, I knew a lot of the designers from the little bit of styling I was doing there, doing the Hampton covers. I was shooting good girls, so we were getting good clothes. And so I brought all that connection to Hollywood, and it wasn't there before. They were like borrowing dresses from Fred Heyman on Wilshire Boulevard or on Rodeo Drive. It wasn't the same thing, or they were buying their dresses. You have to think of like, God bless them, but Sally Field and those days, the 80s, those girls it wasn't about the fashion. You had the Liz Taylor, Sophia Loren days, Marilyn, where there was fashion, and Audrey. And then there was like the 70s and 80s, no bueno. La moda no bueno.
I agree. I'm not a big fan of 70s, 80s fashion. Just
ooh. And so, I loved old Hollywood glamour, and I brought that to Hollywood. And I think that's how you make a difference in fashion. You have to bring something different to the plate. It can be a new interpretation of it. It can be your brand of it. But you have to and why I made a difference was because I brought something there. Like Hollywood needed that again. And I was with a brand new class. It was Jada and Will and Selma and J-Lo, Jenny from the Block, I did all their first times at the Oscars. J-Lo's first wedding to Ohani. Will and Jade, I did Will and Jada's wedding, but they were together years before that. The baby being Jaden's birth, and oh my God, like just all those beginning times. Sandy Bullock, Lauren Holly, Jim Carrey, we all came at the same time. Cuba, Renee Zellweger, Nicole Kidman, you know, give or take a year or two, we all got to Hollywood at the same time. And again, because I looked a little younger, I fit in with everybody. I think I was actually a couple of years older than everybody, but it's always that weird thing because I looked younger. I fit in with the younger,
You've always
the younger
had that look.
generation.
You know, you're like, I don't know how old you are, but to me, you'll always be Phillip Bloch, 30 years old.
There you go. Let's keep it like that.
Forever 30.
But you know, I think that was part of it. Again, like it's kind of these. I've been very lucky to fall into these like fraternity, sorority kind of things in the industry, and I felt like, again, like to this day, if I see J-Lo or J-Lo, I hear J-Lo's having a birthday party. Like I call Benny Medina. I'm like, hey, I hear J-Lo's out in Hamptons having a birthday party. Can I come? Like her birthday's actually, I think next week or this week. Some shit's coming up. You know, like, and they're like, oh, sure, Phillip. You know, because you got that history. So I feel, you know, like I may not keep in touch with her. Like we not like besties. She ain't calling me about Ben because I would have told her no. No, not after the first time. But we not friendly like that these days. But you know, I'll go to her birthday party and because you have that history. And I feel so grateful to have had moments like Halle and winning the Oscar. I mean, to be able to do your job and have what you do end up in museums, like her dress is in the museum. And that dress launched Ely's career. You know, I think we have these moments in the industry where you're connected to people, and like Halle, Ely, and I are forever connected in that one night back in April in 2002 when she won the Oscar. You know, like
Sure.
It's always, we're all connected through that moment forever for the rest of our lives. You know, and honestly, none of us will ever probably really do anything bigger than that because it is so much a part of history. Yeah. I'm so grateful to have that moment in my career and my portfolio, so to speak, because I think to this day, if you say, oh, what dress did Halle, Nicole Kidman wear or Sandy Bullock wear when they won their Oscar? People don't really remember, but everybody remember that Halle Berry dress. Halle had something at that time. She possessed something that she was the underdog, and we were the underdog because of 9/11. And she was the winner of the Oscar that year after that. So her and Denzel both winning that year was extremely important because as Americans, we needed that. We related to Halle. We felt like the underdogs because and she was vulnerable. Halle was sweet. She was vulnerable. She was beautiful, and she was different. Her beauty was different. The short hair, like it was just different. And I think what a gift to have been given that. There was clearly a part of my destiny, or like Michael Jackson's last photo shoots. Like, oh my gosh, like it's just so bizarre when the phone rings and you're given this gift of posterity. And that's why I got in the business. You know, if you remember back, you know, in Paris along the Seine, they have all the magazine stands, and you would see all the magazines from the 20s and the 30s and the 40s. And I didn't even know, like, Thea Bara or whoever those people were. You'd see Sophia Loren, Brigitte Bardot. And you would see these images, and I remembered walking by and thinking, as a model, I'm going to be a part of that, but I want to be more. I want to create these images, and it really manifested, and I got to do that. And even a bigger form than just a magazine on the Seine, to have things like that are people's legacy. I feel very grateful to be a part of people's legacy and the image that they leave behind besides my own. And then that came to me. So I feel very blessed by that. God and I have a good relationship, even though I'm a little bit of a sinner most of the time.
No, not you. Now, here you are, you're in Hollywood making a name for yourself. People know, I mean, I remember when I came here, it was all about Phillip Bloch. You were like untouchable, unreachable. And I remember—
Call my agent.
All of a sudden, House of Style, MTV House of Style. How did that come about?
Well, that, you know, again, it's all the modeling. It's so, my life is so circuitous and it's all connected. As much as I never would have written it this way. I never could have predicted how it would go. I couldn't even dream of half the things that I've been able to do. I gave Ken a makeover. Mattel called and hired me to give Ken a makeover. You know, when VH1 and MTV, when I got called to be on MTV, get to be on.
Sound. Okay.
Hey, somebody, I need a plug for the
No,
phone.
you got.
Can somebody plug in the phone?
I can hear you now.
The phone is getting a low battery. We have a low battery because I'm talking so much, but so we need to plug in the phone. So I think, interestingly enough, like having the modeling background, doing the commercials, doing all the Levi's ads and the jumping, and being in front of a camera, you have to come alive. You have to project something different, and I had that training from the modeling days. So to be able to do that, you know, on MTV, that just became, and you know, there was Mr. Blackwell for so many years. And this was really before Joan, my fashion fairy godmother Joan, started doing her fashion coverage. You know, there was only Mr. Blackwell, and he was too old for this generation. So I became the voice of a generation, really, and spoke to fashion. Then Auntie Joan came along and really set the fashion world on fire. And that was amazing to get to work with her so much on E! We were really there at the start of E! and the start of In Style magazine. It was really, there was a lot of I'm going to plug us into this plug right here. There we go.
I think that's say big ups to my brother Joey Yarborough. Miss you on those congas, buddy.
Oh, I'm holding it right now because
you multitasking. Go ahead.
I'm a multitasker. Oh, there we go. He's setting it up for me. He's setting it up so it goes there. We have a little bit of technical difficulties, but that's the joy of it all.
That's the new world we live in. It's especially when we speak about live. Hey,
yeah, exactly. We didn't have these problems on MTV. It just kind of happened. We just did it, you know. I mean, that was the thing, though. I did a summer. It's kind of crooked. Should I just sit like this most of the time? Wait, or do I have to sit this way? So
no, you're fine.
I can hold it too. I'll hold it. It'll just be easier. I was really, I think in those days, like being able to be at the beginning, you know, if you think like there was no In Style magazine, there was no ETV when I started, and there was nobody gay on TV. There were gay people on TV, but they weren't really out. There was no Anderson Cooper. There was no Don Lemon. There was no Ellen DeGeneres. Like I was just me being me, and like nobody asked, what is he? Is he black? Is he Latin? Is he white? Is he gay? Is he straight? Like it wasn't a thing. Now it's become such a thing. But I'm grateful because I felt like God gave me and the universe gave me the opportunity to represent the community and to make strides that couldn't have been made by others. But because I had a certain ability to, as they say, what do they say about Will? Passes. He passes. You could pass, you know, you could pass, you could get over the gate, you could get in the wall, you know, and that's what kind of happened with the internet. The walls came down and now everybody's doing everything, but there was a wall before and you had to get past that gate, right? To be able to get into the business. And I was lucky, I was able to get over that gate, and I realized because I was lucky that I helped many, many others. Like, again, as I say, whether it was in the modeling industry or as a stylist, like I would constantly pull clothes for other stylists. One of my friends would be doing Brandy, and Badgley and Mishka wouldn't give her a dress for the Grammys. And so I pulled a dress and I said, oh, I'm going to give this to, you know, I pulled it for Sandy Bullock for something else. I said, I'm sending this to Brandy to wear the Grammys. And of course they'd be, oh, okay, great, Phillip. But if a black stylist called for a black artist in those times, they wouldn't give them clothes.
Yeah, well, they give it to you. See, people need to understand that you, in my eyes, you're like possibly the first black man that for some reason the DNA got kind of twisted and came out this, because in you there is no, the soul that you have, your vibe, everything is like if you could tell people you're from Mississippi, I'll believe it.
Beyonce's mother, Miss Tina, used to say that. She said, "You look like our cousins from Louisiana. You are yellow."
I mean, it's unbelievable, your vibe and just everything about you. Now, let's move forward to like today, because all of a sudden we're hearing this noise about Phillip Bloch and his brand new clothing brand with the amazing name. Tell us more about this clothing brand that you're doing.
Well, so again, you know, after having, this is like my 40th year in the business, 40 something year in the business, 42 years, 44 years in the business now, but 47, I don't even know now. It's been more than 40 years. I wanted to just take everything I've done and do something different. You know, I was working on the Black Girl Magics, Black Girl Matter, Black Beauty Matters project for years, which is about the history of Black models. That was great. That was exciting. And again, it took everything I'd learned from the modeling business, and I wanted to make a difference, something for the community and something to bring for the culture. And I worked on that for years. And then I decided to get into the sweater thing. Was the next thing was just a kind of a conglomeration of everything I'd learned. You know, I think that we've gotten to this point in fashion where fashion is luxurious. You know, everything's about luxury brands, Balmain, Balenciaga, you know, Chanel. Everybody wants to be in Louis, and, you know, and who's designing Louis now? Pharrell. It's so interesting how the culture has changed fashion. Fashion didn't change with the culture changed fashion, really. And that's kind of fascinating. And it's great to see. I feel I take pride and I take a little bit of credit and responsibility in my own heart for things coming to this point, and I'm very grateful for it. So I wanted to now rebrand luxury a little. You know, I think the newest luxury is really one of a kind. You can't just spend $700 to get a t-shirt because it says Balmain or Balenciaga on it. I mean, that is not couture. That is not luxury. That is just some BS. That is just some commercial marketing BS. And all these kids run around Balmain sunglasses and, you know, like, that is not what the brand is about. That's not what luxury fashion is about. It's not what couture is. I don't even think people understand what the word couture really means.
I agree.
You know, so I really wanted to create a brand that was couture oriented. Again, we're not couture. Each piece is one of a kind, which is a part of what couture is. Although couture is something that is made specifically for you with your measurements. That is couture, as opposed to ready to wear, which is just ready to wear. So we have kind of a couture ready to wear. It's very much conceived and created with a customer in mind. It's all sustainable. I buy cashmere sweaters. They're all cashmere sweaters, and I remove either the sleeves or the front, and I replace it with like vintage fabrics or remnants from vintage fabrics. They're all like beaded and feathers, and it's all very, very intricate. They're all like jewels, you know. It's like little fashion jewels. They sparkle, and they all have their own little world to them, and one of a kind.
And it's all
a lot of the
handcrafted.
Yeah, all handmade with love, handmade with love.
Of course.
And I don't know. I think it's really interesting. A lot of my celebrity friends are wearing it. I've had some great press articles. The press has been really great to us, which is really, really nice, you know, because it takes a lot of time to get a word out there nowadays. Things don't just happen 1, 2, 3. You know, there's a lot of noise. As Andre, may he rest in peace, used to say, "Oh, Charles, there's so much noise, darling. There's so much noise. I just wish everybody would stop making the noise. I can't focus." You know, there's a lot of noise out there. So it takes a lot to be able to create a brand now and get noticed. And I'm really excited. The 27th, I'm being honored at Hamptons Fashion Week out in the Hamptons. We're going to do a fashion show. I'm going to do my first fashion presentation, and I'm excited. You know, to have celebrities wearing your clothes again. Like, I always love the legacy of it. You know, Angela Bassett's got one of my sweaters. She wears it a lot. Kim Cattrall, Julianne Moore, Julianne Margulies, Fran Drescher, the president of the CFDA.
Hello.
Not CFDA, I mean of AFTRA, SAG-AFTRA, sorry, CFDA. Of SAG-AFTRA. You know, I mean, I'm really grateful that so many of my friends have been so supportive. Vivica Fox, oh my gosh, it's been real. Pat Cleveland, Carol, all so sweet. Lydia Hurst, Lydia's been so sweet. I love the celebrities that buy. We love the celebrities that wear it, or that borrow it, or that you give it as a present. But the ones that buy, we really love. Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, Vivica. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Julianne. We love when they
support
buy.
The culture. Got to support the culture.
You absolutely have to. I think it's so interesting. You know, I think if people wanted to, if someone were to ask me the question, what can we all do to help support, you know, young designers, new designers, designers of different backgrounds, different kinds of designers, buy them. Buy them full price.
Now,
you know, you're not helping anybody. If you're a real fashion lover, you don't need to be in Gucci or Louis Vuitton. there's so many creative brands out there that are just, you know, waiting to explode. You know, I mean, they just need a little help from the consumer. I think that's one of the hardest things as a designer is building your following, building your clientele, and getting people to know who you are. Did we freeze? I think I'm frozen. I think I'm frozen. I see a little circle spinning. I see a little. I don't know.
Oh, maybe it's ending. Well, if we went over 55 minutes, it closes out.
I don't think it's that.
Can you call on?
Aw, Melise. Hi, Melise. You see me, Melise?
Hey.
Hey, there you are.
Oh, I ran out of battery. So now I have to keep my phone really like this because I have no battery. I have like no signal. I have no juice.
Bro, we've hung out for days on end and you didn't run out of juice. What's going on?
I know, right? Isn't that crazy? So I would have to do this like this because I have no juice right now on my phone.
I'm in the plug too. I'm holding it. That's how we do. That's what we were talking about before.
We keep it moving, baby.
You make it happen. You do the best you can.
Moving. That's all we do. We keep it moving.
Now, when you have a bad day, you get back up.
There you go. Well, there's no such thing as a bad day. It's like to me, it's like if you wake up, it's a good day.
There you go. There you go.
Wake up, it's a good day. That's how I look at things. Now, question: how did the name come about?
Omniscient Things. The name is Omniscient Things. And again, I wanted, you know, I'm a man of faith. I have a good relationship with the Lord. And some days he works for me too. And other days less. But I'm here to serve. I've always believed I'm here to serve. And I believe that Omniscient Things is like an all-knowing. It's an all-knowing and all-being and an omniscient power. And I felt like this collection was my omniscient power, my omniscient knowing of all the things I've learned in fashion. And I tried to create these pieces that were extremely special and very personal and something that people would treasure, not just another piece of clothing. I didn't want to create a t-shirt and a quick little line of something that, you know, just disposable fashion. First of all, the numbers for sustainability are so important for people to know. Fashion is really like one of the biggest producers of waste and in the world, and part of one of the biggest problems of global warming and the climate problems. So I'm a big believer in being a part of the cure, not the cause. So creating a sustainable collection was very, very important. And like I say, the luxury and the one of a kind. And this is my omniscient power. This is my all-knowing. It was all these different things. I wanted also, like, you could wear one of these sweaters with a ball gown skirt and go to the Oscars. You could throw it on with a pair of jeans and go to a fun luncheon. You could throw it under a blazer and a skirt or a pair of pants and wear it as a suit to a board meeting. Like, I knew what my clients need. I know what women need. You know, I deal with boss ladies. My girls are all HBICs. And they need to go from day to evening. They want to look a certain way. They want to present a certain way. This collection isn't for everybody. Let's be clear. You know, people say a lot of things about fashion, like, I don't see myself represented. Well, okay, well, then this isn't for you. Or
for you.
You could see yourself in my clothes. You don't have to, you know. I wanted to create something for women that are powerful and want something different and have personal style. And they know when they see it, like, oh, I'm going to do this with it, with that, with it. So that's why it's Omniscient Things.
It's an amazing, amazing name. And let me ask you, is it all bespoke? Is it already, for instance, where can people purchase it or how do people get access to it?
Omniscientthings.com or philipbloch.com on my website, philipbloch.com. We're selling in a few different stores. I don't actually know who's got them in stock right now because we're kind of finishing out spring, summer. So I don't know who's got content still, but everything is on my site. If they go to philipbloch.com or godstuff.com or omniscientthings.com, either one, it all leads you there. And I think there's about 180 right now, all one of a kind. and they run in different smalls from small to extra large. They're very fluid. Some guys buy them also. And so you can see, maybe there's 160 now, I think, somewhere in there. I had originally created like 200, then we sold a bunch, and I created another 40 or 50. So I try and keep replacing them as we sell 10 or 20. I put another new 10 or 20 in. And it's all, you know, most of it's like, I think right now it's online probably till September, because you're at that end of the season, really, where it's the end of spring, summer. But again, we're doing a special, a lot of what I like to do is I love to mix philanthropy and fashion. And so we're doing the sale at Hampton's Fashion Week on the 27th, which is the Saturday. And 20% of the proceeds go to Ellen Herman Foundation for breast cancer, which is a big charity out in Long Island. They do something called Ellen's Run. My friend Christy Brinkley is always very involved in their charities. And it's all for breast cancer. My mom passed away from breast cancer. So I love to do events that combine fashion and philanthropy. I find that's really kind of one of my secret ways of selling, and it's my favorite. I worked with Holly Robinson Peete at the holidays, and for her charity autism.
Love her.
So very, you know, again, pairing up with charities is a great way to sell the sweaters, and you get the one-on-one contact with the girls and the ladies, and to be able to mix philanthropy and fashion it's important. You know, I mean, like, everybody has their gifts. I feel like my gift is fashion, so if I can use it in this way, it's going to be even better. You know, I mean, I can kill a lot of birds or build a lot of birds with one stone. And I think for me, the more things are connected. You know, everything ends up being connected in life. There are no mysteries or secrets, and you know, we all have these powers and these gifts. It's really just a matter of figuring out how to use them. You know, I mean, and connecting them together.
Sure. What's next for Phillip Bloch? I know you.
Well, one of my other things.
Tell me about the podcast, because I know you have a podcast going right now. Tell us a little bit about the podcast you have going on.
The podcast is really, really fun. That's one of my passion projects as well. And Carol Alt, I do it with Carol Alt, the Sports Illustrated supermodel, one of our friends for many, many years. And Carol is brilliant, and she's so professional, and she's great on camera. She really is she should be like an anchor on a news show. She really is just so professional and elegant, and so unlike myself. She has an elegance. You know, you and I are a certain way. We got our homeboy thing. Carol has an elegance and a class and dignity that we have a little less of. We use less. And then Pat Cleveland, the amazing and legendary, iconic Pat Cleveland. Like, how exciting to work with someone that you really have admired, you know, from the beginning of your career. So I feel very excited to work with Pat. And it's called True Crime, Fashion and Passion. And you can see it wherever you get your podcasts. It's on Spotify and iHeart and all the regular podcast places. True Crime, Fashion and Passion. And we have all these literally sensational stories about true crimes in the fashion industry.
Oh, wow.
Like, you know, oh yeah, it's like Katusha. We talk about Katusha's passing and how was she killed? Was it murder? William Shatner's wife, Noreen Kidd. She was a really good friend of mine. We share the same birthday. She died in the swimming pool when nobody was home. I hate when that happens in Hollywood in the 90s. The swimming pool was a dangerous place for a Hollywood wife in the 90s.
A couple of those.
There were a couple of those. Sometimes it isn't cheaper to keep her. Sometimes it's easier to get rid of her, I think. So, you know, we delved into those stories. Margot Hemingway, was it death? Was it suicide? You know, we didn't do the Versace story because it was done so many times.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And you can't do it better than they did it on TV.
Yeah.
So, you know, but we have over 300 crimes. It's really fascinating. Some really, really great stories. Remember the guy in the Gaga video that he's all covered in tattoos, the model completely covered in tattoos?
What was his name?
Like, he ended up falling off his balcony and was it suicide?
What was his name again?
I can't think of his name right this minute, but we did his story. Ronnie Marquette, who supposedly committed suicide with Dee Dee Pfeiffer. Supposedly.
Oops.
I hate when that happens.
That's my boy who I had. That boy was destined to become a global star.
Yeah.
Global, very special guy, very special boy.
Very
But
sad.
let's move on from that one because that's like a little touchy subject.
That's why we do it
Phillip.
on the podcast, True Crime, Fashion and Fashion, because we don't back down to authority.
Yeah.
Power
Now,
to the
question, Phillip.
people.
I always love asking this question. City of preference: New York, LA, Paris,
Oh my gosh.
London.
I'm a New Yorker. You know, I'm born and bred here. I'm a New Yorker. I love Paris, though. I mean, I think the city of New York, Paris is my favorite city. Like, I really couldn't decide, you know. I think I would love to go back and live in Paris. I mean, if I could, I'd blink right now and I'd go model in Paris for another 6 months or a year. That would be my dream job right now. I would love to just go back and kind of relive that experience. I wanted to go this season for the collections, actually. I thought, what a great year with the Olympics being there, and there was so much going on during Fashion Week. I really, really wanted to get there, but omniscient things kept me too busy to go, and the Hamptons Fashion Week came up, and I was like,
Yeah, you got to be in New York to handle your business right now.
Got to be in New York to handle my business, but New York and Paris. What about you? What's your favorite city? Which one?
Ooh,
You love LA, though.
No, you know what? I'm New York City.
Right?
New York City is the greatest city in the world.
We have it all. We have it
I
all.
love many places around the world, but to me, nothing beats New York City.
And it used to be 24 hours a day. It's getting back there. We're almost back there now.
Yeah, I believe everyone should put in 2 years minimum in New York City.
Absolutely.
To become a real human. Because New York has an ability to humanize you real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely. You have to, like, I just think if you want to be in this industry, I always think, like, people say, like, oh, I want to be this, and they think they have to go do that right away. You have to learn how to do that. It's like, even as a stylist, I say, go work at Victoria's Secret, go work in Bloomingdale's, like, learn about the body, dress people for a year, then be a stylist. You can't be a stylist, like, just because you know how to get dressed.
Yeah.
Like, you have to learn about the body, learn about anatomy, go take pictures, learn how to take pictures. Like, I think the great thing about our business, about the world of fashion and entertainment, they say, you know, we were joking before, yeah, it's not personal, it's business. It is personal, and you have to learn how to do a lot of things. The more you know, the more you learn, the more you observe, the more you're going to be able to do, and the higher you can climb up the tree, the more you can create. And I think at the end of the day, for people like you and myself, it's about creating and creating legacy and pushing things forward, driving the ball, pushing that ball up the hill, and creating more legacy and more beauty.
Staying curious is always a big thing with me. Stay curious.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to keep wanting to learn. You have to still have that hunger to learn. You can never get bored and tired. If you get bored and tired, then that's your time to leave the industry. I think, you know, every day doesn't have to be a challenge.
No.
But with the internet, it is. But again, we have so much technology that we didn't have before. I really look forward to seeing the industry change more. I think we saw a lot of growth during the pandemic because of Black Lives Matter. I think we saw a lot of diversity growth. Sure. I think we saw a lot of racial and just age and size. And look at this old guys modeling again. There's hope.
Oh, I know.
The world realizes.
You know, that's a lot of it is thanks to NADIA. You know, she's one of the ones who really loves to pave the way for the older and to pay respect to the ones who paved the way for this new generation. And, you know, I love the fact that there's a lot of, you know, older males are being recognized these days. I think it's so amazing because at the end of the day, I don't think we make men like we used to. You know, there's this whole new way of looking at beauty. And to me, a handsome man is a handsome man.
Absolutely. Timeless. Absolutely.
You know, beauty and a man who looks like a man. You know, you know, for a straight guy, I've always admired a man who has, when he walks in the room, demands respect. He looks like the power of a man. You know, I always enjoy that. But this is not about me. It's about you.
No, I think, you know, and Claudia, our girl Claudia is watching. Hey, Claudia, yes, the internet is being compared with what we lived. Yeah, exactly. It can't be, though. It's, you know, that time was different. This is just such a such a different time. But I think now we have a thing where we have more niche marketing. And so there is a place for older men. There's a place for older black men. There's a place for older women. There's a place for full-figured girls. There's a place for trans now. There's a place for male trans, female trans. Like, you know, there's companies understand there's more than one customer out there. The world is not all white and blonde hair and blue eyes and a size 42 reg. That you have to speak. Now, everything isn't for everybody, and that's what, you know, my whole fashion thing is. Like, maybe this brand isn't for you. Maybe Omniscient Things isn't for you. That might be for one of your friends, but it might not be for you. Everything isn't for everybody. But that's the great thing about marketing now and the industry now. You can find somebody that looks like you. I was very moved by, I went to an event recently for Pride, and there was a girl, and she kept talking about how this underwear brand that she was representing, and she said, you know, when I was a girl, I never saw myself in the advertising. I could never relate to anything. I just couldn't see me. I didn't see me. And I thought, that's so weird. As a gay, Latino, white guy growing up in Long Island in the 70s and 80s, I didn't see me. I didn't see me there, but I knew there was a place for me. So I was very interested. I saw guys like Mario Van Peebles. I saw Paul Palmero. I saw Charlie Hawk. And I realized, Charlie, right? Charlie, yeah, I just took you back. Those guys, what did they do? They jumped. They had charisma. They smiled. They laughed. It was different. They weren't, you know, who's the classic guys? The Paul Quallys and your boys, you know.
The classic ones, you know.
Yeah, they weren't
Rick
the classic
Edwards, the
yeah, they were
brothers.
Rick Edwards. Yeah. Exactly, the Scott Benoit, you know. Benoit, you know, we brought something else. It was the charisma, and I said, hey, I can do that. So I think it's so interesting in that nowadays, thank you, Burberry Diva, thank you. I think nowadays, you know, we realize there's something for everybody. It doesn't, beauty is everywhere. Beauty is where you find it. Madonna said it best. Beauty is where you find it. And, you know, I think now, finally, more than ever, I think NADIA over at Major Models has done something incredible, too. They just started a family division because it makes sense. Like, the beautiful girl models get together with the beautiful guy models. They have beautiful model kids. Like, hey, this is all working. Keep it in the family. You know, I mean, but marketers saw that during the pandemic. Like, oh, and about families. You know, I think with Kobe passing, that was something really interesting that you and I had talked about this back at the time. When Kobe passed a few weeks before the pandemic. And guys that never cried,
as you know.
Remember we talked about this. Guys that never cried openly or publicly, and they kind of kept their emotions. I mean, grown men were calling on radio stations just crying. The buses in LA had our Rest in Peace Kobe on it for weeks. Like, I mean, it was such a pouring of things. And it was so interesting. Within a few weeks of that, those men were trapped in the house with their kids and their wives and their families for months on end. It was as if the universe sort of gave people a forewarning, like, appreciate your family and enjoy that time together. Like, Kobe was like, you know, I believe having the career I've had and meeting the people I meet, certain people are angels. Like, they are on this planet for a reason. You know, that God puts them on this planet to spread a bigger message, and it doesn't make them, nobody's better than anybody else, but they have a different purpose. We each have to, and I think part of Kobe's purpose was that.
With that said, I'm going to have to wrap it up because Instagram will definitely just cut us off, and I will not be able to say our gratitude to you, our gratitude to our beautiful, amazing team at Era Management.
Yeah,
beautiful thanks and big love to our producer and creator of the show, Nadia, and just for your beautiful soul, Philip. I'm so glad that we were able to do this. I will be in New York very soon, so I'm definitely going to look you up. I miss your dinners here in LA, but
yes,
we will do it in New York, my boy. So I truly want to thank you from the middle of my heart. I don't like to say the bottom.
I love it.
From the middle of my heart.
You forever, and I
would always say those good, you know, that word that you and I use. I do love you, but I loyal you more.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, hopefully I'm going to be out there end of September for Holly Robinson Pete's event, Autism Speaks event. Viola Davis is being honored, and Frederick
Yep.
Anderson is going to be the designer, and I'm going to come out and have some
I
fun.
will see
So I hope
you then, my
then.
friend.
All right. Mwah.
Always.
Love you.
Ciao, baby.
Loyal, love you. Bye.
Ciao.